Hello, hi Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for accepting our invitation in CXarabia, and we are very happy to have you here. You were named as one of the top 30 gurus in CX, top 50 CX influencers, and you have the best-selling book. You have a lot of experiences in globally and in the area in South Africa and different locations, and even you have a very much experience in the customer experience and business process regarding customer experience. So, Steve, just we were discussing last time about how we have created this localized CX. So, can you give us a brief about yourself to our audience and how we can take it from there? And thank you again.
Okay, no, thank you very much for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here as well. And well, a pleasure to be with you virtually and spend quite a bit of time in Middle East and North Africa. So it's a lovely place to visit when I do get occasion to go. In terms of myself, I started off decades ago, as people will see from the visual, as an industrial engineer and spent a lot of my career in the financial sector, climbed the totem pole to eventually be the director of ops and technology for Citigroup, who at the time were the world's largest bank. And they gave me, interestingly, they transferred me to New York and gave me responsibility for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that's when I started traveling to the Middle East some 35 years ago now to visit different places and different locales. So I've had the pleasure of seeing the development and the professionalism sort of increase in the region. Now, as I said, I was an industrial engineer, so I was a process guy. So I'm known in BPM, BPR. My first book 30 years ago was Business Process Reengineering, a Senior Executive's Guide, based on how we were transforming our organization around the planet. But when you distill it down, everything is about the customer. There isn't anything that doesn't involve the customer. All work is a consequence of the customer. And so many people in our organizations don't get that. So 20 years ago, I was fortunate to be working with Virgin as an external consultant. We started our organization, the Business Performance Group, really as operates as a not-for-profit. And our raison d'etre, if you like, is how quickly can we upskill organizations to help them transform themselves. So 20 years ago, I was working with Virgin, and they were telling us that the methodology we were using wasn't sufficient anymore. And to cut a long story short, basically, it missed the customer. You know, it was all about
the core factor, the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why we're all here. And we were saying, no, the customer's implicit. And the counter to that was, no, the customer has to be explicit. So we spent a number of years with them under NDA, developing what became known and is known as the CM method, the Customer Experience Management Method, which we launched in 2006. And here we are today, having worked with many of the most progressive companies on the planet, helping them transform so their orientation shifts from what they're doing to what they're delivering. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent, and very, very much. You are being in this for a very long time, for decades. As what you said, what changed from that time to till this time? How is changing? And we see it's evolving even in our region here. Still, we are talking about CX. It's one of the top 3 priorities, maybe for most of our CEOs. But at the end, we are all having these nice talks, but still, we cannot transform to have the customer, I would say, on the board, to have this seat, to start think as a customer on outside. And how you see it, how it's changed, what's the difference with the digital and all these?
Well, I think one of the challenges many of us still face is that we've inherited a way of working which was invented 200 years ago. So summarizing that, functional specialist, silo-based, end-to-end processes.
Exactly.
Where is the customer in all that? Like, the customer's really sort of a side, somebody watching from the side. But as we know, any of us who are involved in CX big time, the customer's central and pivotal. So what's shifting, and that's shifted certainly in the last 5 or 10 years, is that organizations who are becoming very proficient at this become customer obsessed. So the sort of questions they're asking is, how will this project in IT, for instance, contribute to our alignment to successful customer outcomes? How will this change and transformation in the marketplace help us to embrace the idea of the customer and customer centricity in its essence? And how can we guide all our behaviors in that way? So we're seeing that shift. A challenge within that shift is because we've inherited this model, 200-year-old model, which, I mean, it's older than 200 years. It goes back to Adam Smith and the Wealth of Nations. And many of our folks in business school are still going through that. Now, that model was all about making factories more efficient and more effective. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Make sure we turned all our devices off. So let me make sure that that device is on. And that model constrains our ability to deliver successful customer outcomes. It was never designed to do what we're trying to do in the third decade of the 21st century.
And how it's there? Because we are talking about customer obsessed. We have a lot of new theories, a lot of practices. What you are saying is exactly what I heard long time ago, that what we have is the same, what was invented years ago, but we need to get this implemented as what you said, in a localized flavor, in a tailored one, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
yeah, well, I think common to the, you know, as you already indicated, just before the pandemic, I did 400,000 miles in that year. And common to all the places that I visit around the planet is this trying to get our heads around this new way of thinking in terms of customer obsession. And the struggle really is it's that old model is very tenacious. It sort of clings on in the form of how we measure success as organizations, how we measure our capability. And then it doesn't really help in the CX space, where some of the initial work around customer experience was what I would refer to as soft and fluffy. It was quite subjective. It was quite, it was emotional in content. And of course, if we're talking at the top table level, we need to be increasing whatever we're doing, whether we're in government, whether we're in a private enterprise, charitable, we need to be improving shareholder value. Yes. So the real successes with CX and what we've touched on in the recent books have been those people who focus on the Triple Crown as being a measure of our ability to integrate customer experience into our organizations. And briefly, the Triple Crown, it was coined by a colleague of mine 20 odd years ago, a chap called Jim Siner, who was the SVP, distinguished SVP for Gartner Group. And basically what he said, and what we agreed at the time, was that if you're doing this stuff right, you will win the Triple Crown. You will simultaneously grow revenues, decrease cost, and improve service. And then we had the element, which is adhere to regulations or compliance or our strategic objectives. So our measure of success is not the retrospective looking in the rear view mirror measures like CSAT and NPS with respect to those, but forward-looking measures which indicate to the organization that, look, by doing these things on behalf of the customer, by improving the experience, we win directly as a consequence of that, the Triple Crown, and that equals growing shareholder value.
Exactly.
So and discussion is easy.
And interesting. Yes. And it's very easy, but what you said, it's a soft thing that we need to have, but always soft. What they are saying soft is very complicated. So we are facing a lot of difficulties defining the measures, because we always have this famous mantra that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. And we start put some measures, we don't know how to implement, how to take it forward. So what you said is a key and vital, because what you said, that we need to know what to measure and to keep a forward eye on that, so we can improve it and get the win this the customer. So how we can have the better measures, how we can start with the better measurements, and we understand that we have this. I would say, I know it's different, but there's some key tips to take it right.
If you think about, the sort of Middle Eastern structures, and particularly in Saudi Arabia, where we've had closed societies which are now coming out into the open. Fortunately, they don't have some of the legacy of some of the countries around the planet. They can embrace these ideas much more quickly. So in our discussions around customer experience, every sort of opportunity to improve the organization is, how is that going to move the dial on Triple Crown? Right, because Triple Crown, I'll give you an example. We're working with an organization in the UAE over the last few years, and customer happiness is a thing. But a lot of the measures around customer happiness, it's almost like trying to drive the car by looking in just the rear view mirror. Right, and we know we can't do that. We can't be retrospective. We have to be forward looking, and we have to be able to almost not just look forward, but see around the next bend and see what's coming. Now, strategically, that's all about getting customer experience at the top table from the point of view of building shareholder value. And then at the same time, helping our metrics in our organization reflect that. So rather than measuring how much of those things are we doing, so how many projects have we delivered on time, to budget, and achieved the deliverables,
Yeah.
If the deliverables weren't oriented around successful customer outcomes, we might get really good at doing dumb stuff. So what we want to do is get the Triple Crown on that agenda, and every initiative in the organization, doesn't matter whether it's buried deep down, is how is this going to contribute to the Triple Crown? And if it doesn't,
yeah, excellent. And here I think we should do this kind of communication to make sure that we are breaking the silos and overcome all these, I would say, famous CX challenges, maybe, right?
Yes.
Because what you're saying,
the metrics, it's always, as you've already indicated, I've been doing this for decades now, but it's always a surprise to me when you go into organizations and you ask them the direct question, how do you measure success? And they'll go, well, it's the bottom line. And then you look at the CX programs that are running, and they hope by doing this, and this, it'll contribute to the bottom line. Well, let's make it explicit. Let's connect the dots and draw the lines between strategy and execution. And in doing that, profoundly improve the customer experience. So there's many, fortunately, there's many case studies of that now. But still, you'll meet the diehards who are paid and rewarded on an old-fashioned system, which just reinforces that silo mentality. So it's about washing that away. It's about opening their eyes to the fact that, look, this is as hard as nails. This isn't soft and woolly. And if we achieve these things, yes, we get customer happiness as a byproduct. It doesn't have to be the main game in town. If we're doing the right things on behalf of the customer and delivering a successful outcome, they will be happier. They will be more joyous. That's the reality of it.
And we get people engaged when we start breaking the silos. We have this kind of communication to take it forward. Is, I think, courage keyword. We need a courage in the organization to start the implementation. And the famous thing, we need to start where to start. Is it the C-suite or go bottom up, top bottom? How kind of implementation we need to take it forward? Because it's not easy. Even in our region here, what we are seeing in different organizations, I have a lot of friends in different organizations. They are always saying that we have the best CX measurements. Out of sudden, Steve, in the past, say 3-4 years, all the customer care departments transformed to CX specialists. They do nothing. They are just a customer care advisors or agents. With all my respect, so we respect the guys, but we need someone who will bring this kind of knowledge, the strategy, the implementation, the belief. And then we can have this customer happiness or customer satisfaction. So we move from a normal organization to a customer obsessed, as what you named it.
Absolutely, yeah. So I've got two perspectives on what you were just saying there, and you're quite right in terms of some things like this stuff, like flavor of the month, and people change their titles, but they're still doing the same old. They're not improving things. So a typical question I ask when I'm invited into the board level is, before they really know who you are, is to ask them the question, is there anybody in this room who isn't interested in growing revenues, reducing cost, and enhancing service? Is there anybody? And there's an IT guy who puts his hand up and says, hey, my IT projects are more important than that. You'll have immediate consensus in the room, which is a great place to start, because you say, look, by delivering successful customer outcomes without exception, you will achieve the Triple Crown. And in achieving the Triple Crown, you will grow shareholder value. So whether that's shareholder value for a public company, a private company, any company on the planet that has customers, it's about shareholder value.
Even governments, even any kind of organization, regardless, is it a digital or normal or a physical? It's as a customer.
It's the customer. So whether it's the citizen, the client, the consumer, it's always a C word, but that's the point of it. The second point of that is to think about how do we connect the dots from that strategic imperative to the work everybody's doing. Now, one of the fundamental ironies that we have at the moment is the reward system's upside down. So if I take you into a sporting analogy for a moment, and we had the good fortune in 5 or 6 years ago of working in the English Premier League, one of our partners did anyhow, and transformed one of the clubs who was in the relegation zone to winning the English Premier League in a season. Same people doing, but doing it in a different way. Because one of the ironies is, let's think about this, is we give our most precious resource, typically the customer, to our lowest paid, least skilled people. In other words, people who are often in the call center, people who are in the contact center, people who are dealing with customers on a day-to-day level. And as they get good, what do? we promote them away from the customer into this
Exactly.
functional specialist hierarchy. So
Yes,
the reward system oftentimes is upside down. So people, when they're playing the game,
yes, and
players
the
on the
point
pitch,
is,
because they're delivering success, hopefully, to the fan. And the fans only really need two measures. How many did we score and how many did they score? So
yes,
we could simplify this out to actually sort of say, are we all aligned to actually delivering customer success? And if so, what mindsets do we need and what reward structures should we have to encourage those mindsets? And that
exactly.
upends, if you like, that turns the organization around. So we have our star players are actually interacting with customers and delivering success. But of course, the resistance to that isn't a logical one. It's an emotional one about the amount of time. So people like myself who've taken decades to climb the totem pole in the organization, and you come along and say, look, we want to pay our prize players the best money there is. We want to reward and and it's not just the money, it's the incentivization, it's the employee engagement, it's that whole thing.
Exactly.
And so you can start that off. You don't have to go organization wide. You can start it off by demonstrating the success of that.
Exactly. Sounds very interesting. And the point is that whenever we are putting, as this ship I can always say, or what I hear, you can have the best marketing strategies to get people coming, but when they knock the door, who will open? Your frontliners. So those people are the most important guys in the organization that you need to take them forward and to train them. And there is this missing link, what you said. Top management, they don't know their frontliners. The frontliners are always afraid. They need this kind of incentive that to see the CEO or the chief only in the floor, talking to them one-to-one directly, so they can give a lot of, this is a kind of incentive maybe. And this is back to our empowerment and the courage again, because people are not honest when they're receiving the feedback. They are always challenging the numbers, the feedback, not challenging the root cause. And we are always saying, please guys, don't look at the scale. This is your weight. How we can make it lighter. It's not the kind of a cheating. We need to face the issues, work all together. Then we can take it. As what you said, our frontliners is the main point just to start with the CX, right? Exactly. And for the strategy now, if we go back to the strategy, so we have built it, we go with the board, so we have everyone, as what you said. So the Triple Crown is the thing that everyone is looking for. So
that's the deliverable,
yeah. So very nice. And what else we need to focus on when implementing our?
There's again, this is a real basic thing. Is oftentimes people have the wrong definition for customer experience. They'll define it in the context of being inside out. They'll define it in the organizational context. So let me give you an example of the differences between the two. And I don't want to name drop necessarily, but this goes back a few years, where there was a particular problem in the aviation industry with lost and damaged bags. And there's a publicly quoted figure that one of the major global airlines was losing upwards of 28 to 30% of bags getting lost and damaged. And of course, they would define all their experiences of starting from when somebody buys a ticket to fly to when you get the bag off the carousel. So, of course, any fixes they're doing within that are to do with, conveyor belt systems, better packaging systems, and so on. Southwest Airlines came along, and this is documented now, and the case studies in the public domain, and said, look, the process doesn't start when it crosses the boundary of our organization. The experience doesn't start there. The customer experience starts when the need arises, and it isn't satisfied until the need's completed.
Exactly.
So when we were hearing that story, it reminded us of the 1997 Steve Jobs talk, where he said, look, the customer experience is the process. So for somebody like myself who came from the process world, and we go, oh my goodness me, you've just blown my brains out, because I've always defined process as an input, an activity, and an output. But if it's the customer experience, it's from when the need arises to when the need is satisfied. And Southwest Airlines, of course, figured out that, look, if we collect the bags from the customer early on and get them when it's quiet at the airport, we can negotiate a lower price for baggage handling. The customer's going to be happier because they've already checked in and the bags are checked in, at the hotel that they're leaving in that morning. And of course, they're going to come back for more. So the definition of Triple Crown, your revenue is going to go up, your costs will come down because you're not chasing around trying to find 30% of lost and damaged bags. And as you probably know, in the US, JD Power's surveys will always have Southwest Airlines in the top 3 in terms of customer performance, because they're not losing and damaging bags to the same extent that the large global players are.
And it's a pain for customers, so they will look for someone who will not make their package lost, and they will lose their vacation, their trip, whatever, to start looking and have this kind of compensation, whatever was the compensation. So we need to go for the route, and it is a process. Yani, it's all about a process, and it's a customer experience at the end of the day. But it starts as what you said: where is the need arise, and how we can have the need satisfied. Interesting definition.
We can partner with other people. You know, we don't have to own that complete experience. Exactly. You know, as in Southwest, they don't, because you and I, as consumers, you know, as flyers, are doing different things at different times. But if we partner with people who have the mutual interest in the successful customer outcome, we can achieve some amazing things. That if we change our definition of CX to be from the customer's perspective rather than the organization's, we embrace much more of the customer journey.
Interesting. This is the key, I think, Steve. This is the key. It's start changing the perspective for the definition to be from, instead of organization, as a customer. It's easy to say, hard to implement, I think, right?
No, absolutely. I saw an interesting, only this week, a note from Ron Kaufman, who was talking about his experience on the airlines, and he was contrasting a Singapore trip, which he was doing, you know, probably 10 hours traveling, you know, across the Pacific from his home in Singapore. And what he was talking about was, he sort of said, look, you know, I don't want to eat at the moment. I'll come to you and see about eating. And when he came around 6 hours later, there's a little note pinned to his chair, which sort of said, customer doesn't want food, and so on. A few days later, he was on Emirates. Exactly the same thing happened. However, this time, the Emirates note was from his perspective. It wasn't from the airline's perspective. It talked about, we hope you've had a pleasant sleep and things like that. So this is a systemic thing we have to get into our organization, where everybody's thinking, how does what I do contribute to customer success? And if it doesn't, why am I doing it?
Yes, and the point of this example, when I saw the 2 examples, and it was by coincidence 3 days ago maybe, the 2 messages deliver the same messages to the staff. But the point is, I'm showing the customer that you are the core thing that we are looking for, and he was very satisfied, even though he took the same. I would say the outcome was the same, but he's seeing myself as the core of this. It's not the staff, and it's very simple.
We refer to that thinking as being outside in. It's from the customer's perspective rather than inside out from what we're doing as an organization. So if we begin to see everything in that way, it changes the mindset, it changes the way we actually do work. And it also, because it's winning that Triple Crown, it allows us to take out redundancy in our experiences and processes, which isn't necessary.
Yeah, it's very interesting. How we can reach to this stage? I think we need to have more customers on board, more I'll say focus groups, frontliners engagement. How we can see it? There are a lot of practices saying start with the customer perspective. Just go walk the customer's shoes, see what he see, how he sense your services. What is it for him?
One horror story I'm reminded of is in the year Apple launched the iPhone. Nokia spent more on a voice of customer survey than they'd ever done before. And we all know what happened as a consequence of Nokia not getting the customer's expectations have shifted and changed. And what got them there wasn't going to get them to the next place. So I'm, again, when I go into organizations, say, how do you know what the customer's needs are? And they'll go, well, we do these surveys, we go and ask them what they want and so on. And go, no, that's not the place to start. What you need to do is to be listening at every single interaction. At every single moment of truth with the customer, you need to be understanding and articulating, how are we performing? Not to retrospectively ask them, how did we do? Because that implies you don't know. So yes, customer focus groups to listen to 100% of interactions. And from that, deduce what customer needs are, oftentimes when the customer doesn't know them themselves.
Yeah, so sure. They speak, say, I want to go do this or to do that. And as a staff, I can know that this is the solution for him, not what he is frustrated from. It needs an active listening, actually, very active one.
active listening. That's key to it. And then also another thing that complements that is action in the moment capability, is giving the information to our people, our employees, so that, and using something like the buddying system, that they want to take some action on behalf of the customer. And instead of escalating it and taking it upstairs, with the buddying system, we can turn to a colleague who's suitably skilled and say, look, I'd like to make this decision on behalf of the customer.
Interesting.
Truth. And bingo, you make the decision. Now, of course, being humans, we're going to get some things wrong, but it's not about micromanaging everybody. It's about liberating the employees to be able to make the right decisions on behalf of our customers once we've chosen which customers we want to do business with.
Exactly. It's like the Ritz-Carlton, the empowerment for the daily reimbursement, that every employee can do it. Disneyland, every employee has 3 kinds of jobs. Your job, cleaning and remove all the I would say the trash or something. And the third one is to own the customer and to make sure that you are solving the customer problem. Yeah, and this is a key success, I think.
One of my contributors, one of the people who I collaborate with, is a guy called James Dawkins, who's otherwise known as the CX rock star, because he did physically used to be a rock star. And in his book, Foundations for Customer Centricity, what he talks about is the Ritz-Carlton model. And how they went about doing this, how they established the Customer Experience Management Office. What did they do? And how did they codify success so that it was repeatable? It wasn't like a one-off, we had a good year. But no, what we can do is progressively get better at doing this. So in that sort of context, there's a lot of examples out there. But I'll share one with you, which is something close to my heart because of everything we've all experienced in the last couple of years. I was fortunate enough many years ago to be involved with a US pharmaceutical company called Gilead Sciences. And their case study was published a couple of times in Bloomberg Business Week, because in the first year of implementation of getting this, they took out 2/3 of their total operating cost. And in doing that, reduced the price of the drugs by 50%. So that's documented. We're talking 10 or 12 years ago now. Right up until the point of COVID, when you were talking to other pharmaceutical companies, you said, why don't you do it the Gilead way? They go, oh, we're not a Gilead Sciences. We don't do it like that. We do it like this. Lo and behold, of course, we needed some solutions very, very quickly. And, several of those pharmaceutical companies who got the Gilead understanding codified that success. And, of course, as we know, got vaccines out within 9 months, when it typically would take 10 years. Now, from a successful customer outcome point of view, what did that mean to you and me? That meant we were able to get a vaccine which gives us a significantly higher chance of survival. Right?
Yes, it was very fast.
Years.
Yeah, it's very fast, and this is how we need to learn. And it's very simple the way that you said it, but it's very complicated in the implementation, and it's very key and vital for us to think in it in this way, just to put ourselves and see the perspective, empowerment, and listening at every single interaction. This is what is important, not getting the surveys at every single interaction and throwing all these data away. It's like drowning in the ocean with all this data.
It is.
No one is knowing whatever is going there. We're just collecting. And we always say, don't measure the satisfaction on a survey if you are just measuring it for the sake of measurement. If you don't close the loop, you will increase, you will make their dissatisfaction higher.
That's right. It has to be actionable. And it isn't as if this truth hasn't been known for 50 years. Richard Norman, the creator of that philosophy around moments of truth, talked about every interaction with the customer is a moment of truth. That's the cause of all work for our organizations. And if you fix those interactions, everything else changes as well. So again, that's very directly measurable. It's not some sort of fairy science. It's not some wishful thinking and hoping we get better. It's demonstrable. Immediately you do something. Yes. So from our perspective, as you've already indicated, I travel the world working. I have the fortune of working with so many different organizations and companies. And of course, the messaging is they go, yeah, but we don't do it like that. And you go, that's the problem.
Exactly. And I admit that this is the way that we should do it. And this is the core problem, that we are doing a lot of things. Maybe we succeed in 1 round or 2 rounds just to make the culture and everyone is knowing, but we cannot keep succeeding and doing this, moving us, I will quote you, to be customer obsessed, to have the customer as the core and to listen in every interaction so we can do the positive change and we do CX. This is the way.
And from your point of view in Saudi Arabia and other countries in the region as well, Bahrain and other places in that area where I spend time, is, as we've already said, you don't have some of the legacy that some of the Western countries have got, and you don't have some of the dogma of the Far Eastern countries, about the discipline and the structure and things have to be done a particular way.
Yeah,
so
we
you
are
have
flexible.
embracing CX in a way that other places on the planet are either up against it because of the history or the philosophy or the culture, whereas you guys, and again, being fortunate to work with companies in the government sector, private companies, working with some of the royal family, some of the religious organizations, and once you get this stuff, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You wonder why everything isn't aligned to the delivery of successful customer outcomes.
This is the point, that we have a very strong leadership. They believe in this. They have all the courage. They empowered everyone in the organizations. And when we go and come to the implementation wise, we do maybe 3, 4 milestones out of the 100. I don't know how many. And it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
How we can overcome,
Sure.
how we can be honest and give the feedback to our sponsors, I would say, regardless of
Yes.
their titles and all this, because they have, I see it, Steve, in different organizations. The sponsor is empowering us. One of the organization, it was a government organization, the chief came and he said, guys, I need you to fail. Please fail fast, fail forward. Don't take 6 months to try one solution and you are afraid of the punishment. There is no punishment. I'm telling you, go, fail fast, but please fail fast and fail forward. Don't be afraid to fail. So how we can do it? We have the management. We need people mindset to be changed. And this is the localized issue that we have. I will say a regional issue. Is just to go and I think it's everywhere, not even in our region, right? But we have a great management support, no legacy, and we can change.
Yeah. And I think the other we should take our own medicine as well. Is oftentimes we're given the remit to go away and do things, but then we're constrained by the straitjacket that we put ourselves in because we think what is achievable and what isn't. So we have a little mechanism that we use in our training, which is everybody's a customer. So you've got 3 types of customer. You've got funders, that's who provide the money for the organization and the business, wherever that comes from. Watchers, and that's usually regulators and the management team. And enablers, that's you and me doing the work to deliver the experience. So with those 3 types of customer, you've got to ask yourself the question, who's the most important one? And if you were Richard Branson at Virgin, you would say, well, without funders, we don't have a business. But at the same time, the most important customer for me is my employee. Because if I don't give them the right tools and techniques and training, they can't deliver success, which develops the revenue. And it's getting that mechanism. So to that point you were making there in terms of the higher ups giving us the remit to go on, what's the win for them? What is the win? What's the successful customer outcome for our sponsors? And let's make sure everything we're doing is also aligned to that success. If they're giving us the support, they're giving us the wherewithal, they're saying, look, fail fast, fail forward, do the Google thing. Then if we're all doing that, then let's make sure we win for them in the sense of why are they compelling us to do this? And oftentimes they haven't got the Triple Crown idea yet, but give them that. And boy, every time they walk into that boardroom and they say, look, we've moved the dial in terms of cost, revenue, service. My goodness me is the question. How are you doing so much with so little in such a short time? Bingo, we're all home and driving.
Yes, and it was successful when we have done that in one area, one example. We slightly moved and we get out of our comfort zone. Everyone was engaged after this speech. As what you said, he enabled the enablers of the CX to move it forward. And we have a great success, but we need to keep this cycle moving. And the management team are the core, maybe. They need to keep pushing. Interesting. Very interesting discussion, Steve. I'm very happy to have this discussion. I would say it's structured and it's a great one to see this, how we can move it. And I'm sure we need to work more and more to making these approaches into reality. So we go back to the process maybe, right?
Well, it's the same thing. It's just that the process people themselves would say we've been too myopic. We've been too narrow in our view. Understanding the customer experience is the process means we're all on the same page. We're connecting the dots between strategy and execution and in a linear way as well. So it's a win for all of us in the organization. It's not just those process people over there, keep them away from us. It's a case of we're all in this together, and we can all produce successful customer outcomes if we get better aligned.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. I don't know if we have to do this and to take it this way and to start with everyone, or where to start. So when we have to start the implementation, shall we start with the most or say believers, or then go to the implementation, or how we do this? Just to go in another tab, I'll be very greedy.
If you want to get credibility, if you want to establish a foothold in the organization to demonstrate the efficacy of doing customer experience, from the outside in, what you need to do is fix a big problem sooner rather than later. So my advocacy is always to the teams that we work with and the customer experience management offices is, what's the most significant problem the organization's facing at the moment? Let's apply our thinking to that, and let's give them a win. Excellent. Because immediately you do that. Now, there might be a couple of stepping stones to get there, which is, people say, go and do a proof of concept. You say, that's going to take 6 months. Go and fix some small things very quickly so that they do ask you the question, how are you managing to do so much with so little in such a short time? And could we apply this thinking over there and, and then focus on that big problem? But your time scale to that should be less than 6 months.
Excellent.
It shouldn't be a long road of 5 years. People will get it. As soon as they see the result, they'll get, I want more of that.
Everyone will want to get in the bus. After we have this success.
You want to get on the train, on the bus, in the boat. They want to be with you on the journey.
Exactly. We start with a small win. So we start with a small win. We do incentivize the people who work with us, and we want maybe a recognition and communication, maybe communication. Then you need to open the two doors of the bus, so everyone will start jumping in, right? And this is how I see it. Excellent. Very interesting. I think this is the way we need to understand, to take it.
Yeah.
And I'm very keen to know more and more about your training courses, the master classes, all these, because we know that you have a different kind of levels of the certification. So you train people in the region even and how to implement this, right?
Yes. And in the region, I mean, when the CM method started in 2006, and it was like a 10-day program, we've distilled that now down to 2 days and 4 days, and people variously qualify as accredited customer experience professionals or accredited customer experience masters, which is the 4-day program. And again, there's lots of different trainings you can get in CX, but the difference with ours is that you're going to be working on your own work. So you bring that into the party. So yes, we talk about case studies and success, but what's the point of learning how somebody else has done it? We want to learn how to do it ourselves. So a major thing that people get out of it, beside the certification, of course, is the ability to hit the ground running, or the jump on the bus as soon as they get back into the work environment. So we've been doing, through COVID, obviously, we were doing a lot of that virtually. And interesting enough, that gave us a broader reach across our 40-odd plus partners around the planet. But at the same time, it's been good since last September. I've been back out on the road again, working with partners here in different parts of the world, South Africa, in Spain, in the States, which is where
hopefully we will see you more here physically as well.
I'm looking forward to getting back. It's got friends in Jeddah and in Bahrain and all over the region as well. So I'm looking forward to being in the area again.
Interesting. We have taken a lot of your time, Steve. Thanks a lot, and it was very rich discussion. And we need to have, is there anything else you need to add before we come to the last important thing for us, before we conclude?
No, if people want to get access to, I've done several books, but one of the things I updated was the original, what I think is the seminal 2010 Outside In. And during the pandemic, I've updated that for 2021. So if any of your colleagues, would like a copy of that, I can give them the e-version of that, which tells, there's lots of stories in there, but there's also the codification of success. And it's a good starting point because it's written as a storybook. It's not written as an academic tome. It's meant to be embraced.
We would love to have it even, and we'll make sure to have it. I wanted to ask you as the end of the day is, what is your key message for us? And you just gave us that the one thing that you need to give it to us before we conclude. And you said the outside in updated version. So we will ask for it for sure. I personally, I want to have a copy. I think I had it before I read it, the first version, and I would love to have this version. And I'm very happy to have this discussion. looking forward
Good.
for spreading out this knowledge and to start
Fantastic.
the implementation with it. Thank you a lot, Steve, for your time. It was very
It's
rich.
been a real pleasure, and thanks for giving me the time to actually share with you some of my experiences. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and we hope to see you physically soon. And I'm sure we'll work for something to have it. We have something on the line. We have some kind of events coming soon, and we'll
love to be involved.
Yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Thank you, Steve, and looking forward. See you.
See you again soon. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.